Hey everyone, welcome to my home. First video of the channel. Um, Gonna start with a couple things. What I wanted to walk you guys through is sort of who I am, what are we gonna try to do, and where we trying to go. Um, who am I? My name is David. I live in Houston. I'm married. I've been married 10 years. Been expecting our baby for 5 months now, so she's due in September. Should be our first one. Um, Engineer, came up in Houston more or less. Family's from Louisiana. Went to LSU, got an engineering degree. Been in the oil and gas industry for the last 12 years, 13 years, and along that time, um, I I was convicted by the gospel and was persuaded of its truth. And um, during my career to this point, I've started to really take the faith that I hold dear seriously, and started to investigate it and study it, and realize a few weaknesses that I've seen, just in general with the church. Not necessarily teaching, but the the culture has changed so much that there is a hole, I think, in the thinking of people these days. And it starts with a basic premise of that truth is real, that truth exists. It's so truth is so relativized these days to a point where no one holds that anything is actually true or not. They will always, it's very subtle how it happens, but they'll always do things like, well, this is what I think this means, or this is what I think this says. I remember one time I was giving a short talk to a youth group, and I asked them, these kids weren't necessarily believers or anything, there's just a bunch, 17, 18-year-old kids, and asked them what question, what is truth? And they said, what you think it really is, what do you think is happening? And I just, asked one follow-up question. I was like, he's like, is that what you really think truth is? And then another guy piped up and said, no, truth is what is, which is true. And so that little interaction showed me was there is a hardwired nature to people, I think, to believe that truth exists, and that with a little bit of coaxing, a little bit of direction, you can set them on the right path. And this problem that people think that truth doesn't exist shows up in every aspect of their life. Could be finances, could be how they do their relationships, could be how they talk, how they walk, how they interact with one another, how they think about virtue and justice. And I almost said truth, but it informs every part of their thinking. And because it informs every part of their thinking, it informs every part of their choices they make. And because it informs their choices, it essentially creates their life they live in. And then because it creates their personal life, then it stems even further to what's going on in your county, your town, your state, your country, then ultimately the world. So that's that's sort of who I am. I love truth. I think there is one truth. I think that truth is a person, and that person came in the form of Jesus Christ. So what I'm trying to do here is not necessarily to make this a Bible study or a church sermon, but more so, how does truth pragmatically affect each one of us in our everyday lives? I think the premise that truth exists shows up in every single choice that you make, every day, every second. And I think the more you can connect your decision making to that truth, you can start to understand what you're doing and why you're here and where we're headed, and what all this is all about. So what I'm trying to do is, going to try to convince you. I have a bias, of course, everybody does. We'll be trying to convince you of that truth, and we'll go on the journey together. I think in general people are challenged to think critically these days, but they don't have the requisite tool set to do so. I came through the industrial school system, like so many other people my age. I'm 35, by the way, and I was good at school, but I was only good enough to not have to really start to be challenged to think critically. That really didn't happen until I got to the workforce, and I think I was 24, so when I officially started my career, and so I think there is a gap between what people walk around thinking and believing, and how those thoughts and beliefs inform their decisions, and then how they want to act and think and believe. I think there's just a gap in between those two poles of a person's life. And so where we're going is, I'd like to try to investigate all walks of life. So from relationships, like I said, I'm married, to being a dad, which I'm going to be soon, to what it's like to be a husband, to what it means to follow God, to how that informs politics, to how should we think about giving, and not just of your time and money, but also of your talents and your resources and your effort. I think that in every aspect, like I said, this worldview shows up, and I think the more people are pressed on it in a way that's persuasive, not to be, there's hard lines, of course, but there's no reason, there's very few times that you need to be harsh. And so I think we'll get into all the topics that are hot button issues. Like I said, not necessarily a church sermon, but it's not really a political show either. It really is, okay, how do we find the truth? How do we discover it? What does that truth mean for you personally, but also your family, then your collective community, and then so on and so forth. And so I think with those three things, we'll wrap up, and then I'll see you on the next one. Thanks.